Yeah, exactly. Yeah. This is the Paul Goff Audio Experience, business lessons for physical therapists. My name is Paul Goff, former professional soccer physical therapist turned successful business owner and best-selling author from the UK. Each week, we answer your questions and bring you an inspiring story or person from the global physical therapy community. This show is dedicated to sharing with you everything you need to know to become hugely successful in private practice. Thanks for joining me today. Now let the class begin. I think we're good, and then I'm gonna put this on so I can watch it live and answer any questions that come in. So, welcome everybody. Welcome. We are live all across the world in what is going to be another fantastic episode of the Paul Goff Audio Experience and Podcast. We've got a very special guest, even though he is a Manchester United fan. We will, and we might talk about the uprising, the world has gone into meltdown. Well, England and Europe has after Ronaldo's recent meltdown on Piers Morgan. So we'll probably have a little bit of a conversation.
Hold on, I gotta show you this. I switched over to a new team. I don't know if you know.
I love it. I mean, I love it. I think you should wear it for the entirety of this interview. For those listening back, Natty is wearing or currently holding a Hartlepool United football or soccer shirt, as we call it.
There you go. I'm gonna wear it tomorrow.
That we were giving away at PPM Live. So yeah, I love it. I love it. I love it. So we're going to get into all of that and talk more about the success of Natty and his just experience at PPM Live. He's doing amazing things and really growing an incredible business that you want to take note of. I always like to expose the rising stars of the Planet Paul community, and Natty is definitely one of them to watch out for. If you listen to this and you're still in 2022 as you're listening to it, we've got some big workshops coming up, financial skills and the annual plan workshop. We're going to be in Orlando, 5th and 6th of December. We're going to be in Dublin on the 13th or 14th and 15th. Fly out on the Tuesday, the 13th. 14th and 15th, we're going to be in Dublin, and then I'm heading down to Sydney. Very, very excited to get to Sydney, 7th and 8th of January for a whistle-stop quick trip, as you do, all the way around the other side of the world to see our Australian. And we've just had a ticket booked from New Zealand today as well for the Australian workshop as well. So come and say hello. Email paul@paulgoff.com or head over to paulgoff.com/finance for the world tour and details of the trip. I don't know if there's a more important skill to master for a business that is growing than finance and annual planning. So all of that's going to take place in the coming weeks. And if you're listening back to it, there's a very good chance that we'll probably have something like that happening. Get in touch, paul@paulgoff.com. Come and join all of the fun, which really does happen in the room, in the seminar hall, if you like, in the workshops. We love to get to know you. So come and say hello, which is what Natty is doing. This is quite a cool interview. We've got a guy from England in Orlando interviewing a guy from New Jersey, from Thailand, who moved to New Jersey, who's now in Orlando, waiting for a seminar with a guy from England in Orlando. So I'm interviewing Natty in his bedroom, although I'm not in his bedroom. He's in his hotel room in Orlando, just outside of Celebration, ahead of tomorrow's big event. We've got another CEO meeting tomorrow with 12 of the top clinic owners that are going to get together, share their experiences, and Natty is in town for that. So I thought I'd just pull him on his. I don't have too much fun while he's here in Orlando. That's for the locals. He's here to work. It's for me and Harry and Tobias and Natalie to have the fun. So I'm going to pull Natty and talk a little bit about his progress just over the last few months since we last spoke to him. So what's going on, Natty? How are you?
Oh, I mean, things great. I mean, ever since we kind of left PPM, I just put my blinders on. I did the financial day with you, and for me, everything just all going back to productivity, look at my P&L, and then just really getting ready for 2023. I'm just super excited. Finally, I'm out of clinic completely. I'm not treating it all. So next year, I'm really excited to see what we're gonna be able to do with me actually in the driver's seat of the clinic and not treating.
I love it. So since PPM, what's your biggest reflections? Because I know we had you on the show a few months back, and we found out about your business and what your plans were. How's life changed? How's your thoughts changed since PPM?
So I think the biggest thing for me was having my team with me.
Yep.
I got 4 staff that came along, and it was weird, right? Because it was a hit or miss, right? I'm like, it's 50-50, they're gonna love it, they're gonna hate it, right? And then turned out like 100% was a hit. And what was cool was that, I feel like I was alone on this journey, and my team kind of just was just part of the whole thing. Every
Yep.
time we go to like any mastermind meeting or any CEO meeting, I would come back like, hey, here's what we're gonna do. But for them to see it and be like, oh wow, this is
I
where
get it.
he getting it from.
Yeah.
As like, oh, this is the framework, this is the thought process, this is how
Yeah.
the business actually run.
Yeah.
Now they're like, okay, I get it. Like I totally get it. And the best part was they're like, oh, this whole time I thought you were just hanging out in Florida. Like this is a lot of work. They're like, our brain hurts so bad.
It's true, isn't it? It's true. I often wonder what people think about where we go and what we do. It's just, you live on another planet, and people listening to this, they have to realize they're not normal. They don't do normal things. They invest their time in resources, in books, not in fantasy books, Harry Potter style books. It's success information. And when we invest our money and time in weekends in Orlando, they just assume we're going to have a good time. And it's a phrase in England would be a jolly boys outing, where it's just like, it's just fun. And I think what we've been able to do is combine, or I think what the magic is for a business owner is being able to combine the fun and do stuff that you enjoy and stay good, good natured and calm, and head over to events that you can have a lot of fun and meet some really cool people, but at the same time, come away with some big breakthroughs, some information that you can take back to your business. And if you back yourself to implement, you can have a really, really good chance of being successful. So what else? What specifically? What did you get from it that you've gone and since implemented into your life, to your day-to-day running of the business, or just how you live your life?
So I guess from the tactical standpoint, we just kind of go back and really just look at reverse engineer what our productivity needs to be,
Yeah,
right? And then we figure out like, hey, where are the gaps in these productivity? Where are we losing these people, right? Or why can we fill them up? And then from there, we just start seeing different kind of leaks. And then from there, together as a team, we then go like, okay, well, if you're responsible for marketing, I need you to fix this one leak. And then you're responsible for sales, I need to fix this leak, right? And then now I can talk to the clinician and say, hey, guys, I need you to make sure the PVA is good. I want to make sure that there's no drop off rate. So these are little things. Like for the first time, I'm not doing everything myself. I'm able to like talk to the team and say, hey, you see where the leaks are. You see how it's impacted the business this way. Why don't you go ahead and fix that? And then what resources you need from me, let me know. I can connect you with the right people, right? And the best part is that your team has been so supportive. Like, I mean, Marcy has been on call with my marketing coordinator,
yeah.
right? Luke has been on call with my ops manager, and those kind of resources really help them and give them more confidence in order for them to do their job correctly.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost impossible, is it not, to run a business without resources, without other people trying to help you. What about your your ambition now? Where are you headed? Obviously, when we spoke to you before, has anything changed there in what you would like to do or what you think is possible for your clinic? Like, tell us a little bit about that. I mean, just interested in finding out about what what those types of events do to your thinking, to what you believe is possible, where you could go with your business, and ultimately how you might get there.
So, I mean, I'm just thinking even bigger, right? Obviously, we crossed the 7-figure mark as far as like what we do monthly revenue. My next thing is like, how do we get to 2?
Yeah,
How do we become a multi-million dollar clinic, but also still stay true to our core value, right? And still provide the highest quality care as possible. And what's exciting to me is like now I have the time and the creativity to go in and implement those things, right? Because I have time to coach my team on what we're trying to do. So like now my day to day, rather than treating, I go in, we have a marketing meeting, I'll go in and teach them framework. Hey, here's how we write a caption, here's how we write email, here's how we, engage our, potential leads, right? And then sales meetings, the same thing. So I get to really do what you do to us, right? As far as
yeah,
like teaching us different framework. Now I get to go like, hey, this is what I was taught to me. Here's how we did it. Let's just try to find ways to do it within our own mold. Like pretty much like find our own ways using the framework that you give us,
yeah.
and then let's see what's going to take off in 2023.
How do you think you get from 1 to 2 then? Where do you think your problems are going to come?
Well, I
or
mean, it's
challenge?
always going to,
What's going to be the two things? What's going to be the thing you think you're going to have to nail, and where's your biggest challenge going to come?
well, first thing is it's going to be evolved around people. So when
Yeah.
people leave, that's when people stop. That's when progress stops. So
So
we're
So let
constantly
me go there
recruiting.
then. I love it.
Yeah.
Let me probe there. Why are they going to leave?
Well, I would say a couple things, right? The first thing, they're going to leave because the standards are too high, right? Because we're going to have to call it tighter. The scorecard's going to be, there'll be more higher standard, more
Yeah.
responsibility, right? So people would then self-select themselves out. It's like, hey, I can't do this anymore. This is not, and
Yep.
again, most people would say this is not fun for me. But then again, it's a job, right? It should be meaningful, should have a little bit of fun, but not all the time. It's not a tech company. Otherwise, we're laying off 10,000 people.
I think you're right or about to head. So again, for everybody listening over the last few weeks and months, I've been talking about these different valleys that people are in, and the valleys of death, that 0 to 300, 300 to 900, so a million. And then the next one's a million to 3. After that, 3 to 10. And around about a million, the team that you've got right now is probably going to be all right till about 1.5, 1.6-ish. It'll start to break. We've just finished the CEO session yesterday with another group of 11 or 12, and this exact scenario has happened to a business that's just every year, 5 years on the belt, bang, 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 has got to just under 1.5 million in revenue. Then all of a sudden, one little kind of chink in the armor, if you like, just doesn't kind of play ball. Somebody leaves, a major player in the team who had their eyes on this thing leaves the business, and bang, all of a sudden there's 300 or 400 grand missing in the company in revenue this year because somebody took their eye off the ball with that simple thing. While the business owners over here looking at different elements of the business, trying to think big, think creative, all of a sudden there's a problem over here with an individual that's very important to the business who they don't realize is that important, leaves for the sake of probably a few $1,000s in terms of money that goes on to, in terms of salary, that then goes on to cost the business probably, like I said, conservatively $300,000 or $400,000 because somebody's took their eye off the ball on the people management side of things. And I think what starts to happen is you crank up the pressure. If you're not careful, you lose people. First of all, you'll lose them. You will inevitably, but you'll also lose them. You lose them because of the pressure, but inevitably you lose them because you stop spending time with them. And because you start cranking up the pressure and the heat with all of these people over here, the one or two key players who are used to having a little bit of natty kind of umbilical cord to plug in, right, and get something from, they're like, well, he doesn't care about me, and like he's not interested in me, and I don't really know where I'm going in this business, so I think I'll leave, and I think I'll look for another job. And it's like, oh shit, I didn't see that coming. Well, that job was quite easy. Let's replace that person with somebody that can do it. And all of a sudden you think, oh shit, actually that was a key player in the company, and you were spending your time with the wrong people. They left, and that's cost you big time. That's one of the ways that people get stuck. But you're right. The other one is ultimately in that people get they self-select out. And I suspect of 10 people in your team, 3 or 4 or 5 won't be there in the next 6, $500,000 of revenue, $600 worth of revenue, because the standards have to change as the business grows. And if not, what ultimately happens, you end up with a business that flatlines, and they're on life. They're always they come back up. They hit 1.2 million, 1.3, and then it drops back down. They have a come to Jesus moment, if you like. They change everything. They come back up, and they just can't get past that 1.5, 1.6. And ultimately, it was probably 2 or 3 key hires that needed to get right to build the infrastructure to allow the business owner not to get sucked back in and stay high and think bigger and ultimately try and grow that business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, my main focus now is like, we're always serving our patient really hard, right? How do we serve the key people really hard as well? How do we show them the path of progression that, again, fit within their value, right? Like, well, obviously, what I've learned in the past is I'm not going to present opportunity to someone that haven't proven themselves, right? So what we usually do is we're like, hey, can you take care of this for me, right? And then again, if you will have a select few that will say yes, and they can handle those things, you can say, okay, all right, I see what you're doing. I appreciate it. It's not going unnoticed. 3 to 6 months from now, there might be something else, right? But all I would look for is, are they capable of doing the job, and are they willing to do the job, right? And then can they do it well? And then even going back to hiring, as we talked before in the past, is I don't hire for potential anymore. I kind of hire to protect the downside. I just hire people based on if they can do the job and solve the problem that I have. Before, as a healthcare provider, we're super nice and we want to just go like, oh yeah, I like that person.
Yeah.
They kind of like me. We could get along, right? You and I can go have dinner and that would be fine. But that's not the right fit for the certain role, right? For someone, I can't hire someone like me because I'm not meticulous in detail, right? I would need someone
Yeah.
that's kind of the opposite of me to help pretty much like round out my business a little bit. Because otherwise, it's just lopsided. And now everyone have big ideas, but there's no execution.
Yep. I think the biggest shift you're going to have to make as you do this and you get into it over the next 6 to 12 months, and this will be a recurring theme for anybody listening to this as you're trying to scale a business. There comes a wonderful day in your business life that you have to stop, and this is brutal. You have to stop caring about the customers, and you have to start caring about the staff. And it's the staff's job to care about the customers. So your job becomes to teach the staff how to love the customers. So there's a new layer now that you're still caring about the customers, right? But indirectly, and you're teaching your staff to love the customers in the same way that you would like, you would, or you could, or as close to you as is possible. But the business owners that that are trying to be lofty, that are trying to be big picture, that are trying to be, I want to grow to 2 million, who still are obsessed with them providing some kind of individual service to the customers, they're the ones who get stuck. And the mistake is that you're trying to do something for like however many hundreds of customers every month that you can't. But what you could have done is done something for 5 members of staff who could have done something for 15 members of staff underneath them, and your impact makes its way down to the customer and is felt by the customer. And the 50% of energy required to do that allows you for another 50% of energy to be creative, think bigger, improve your marketing, like ramp it up, improve your relationships in the community, whatever it's going to be. But if the business owner tries to stay on the customer service level too much for too long, including treating patients, that's nearly always where the 1.5 million business wobbles, because the business owner has lofty ambitions, but is stuck on the ground floor, if you like, talking to customers, talking to clients.
Mm-hmm. And, just talking to other CEOs and other business owners who have built to a certain point and then stepped out, like that's something that I hear all the time is that, the business kind of tank, right? Because they have other vision that they want to go pursue. For me, I worked so hard within the past 4 years to get to where I am now. What I want to do now is just still looking at the business and grow it more and, spending more time coaching my people. Just like what I said on PPM on stage live was, really meaningful to me is to take the time, give opportunities to my team that truly deserve it, because someone did that for me in the past.
Yep.
I got hired on jobs I didn't deserve and I didn't have the necessary skill set to do those jobs. But someone said, you know what, man, you got something. Let me teach you how to do it. And I want to do that for my team, right? Because if I can, that's really, it's really very impactful for me, because at the end of the day, I get to help someone that can help more clients, like you said, and go home at night, my day feel good. Like I don't really have a bad day.
Yeah. What's let's switch gears. So we're kind of crossed this $80,000 a month, $1 million revenue mark now for the business. How many staff?
12.
12 staff. So 7-figure business, 12 staff, and 2022 has been a phenomenal year for you. You've made it on the stage. You grow your business. You're making good money. You're loving your life. You travel a lot. You've been all over the world in the summer, and you're back in Florida. You live a terrific life that people would kind of want to emulate. What do you think the big decisions are that you've made in 2022? So we come towards the end of the year. What's some of the big decisions you've made to get yourself into this position?
I think the biggest thing was to always double down on myself. Just really, like each trip gets harder and harder for me to leave. And I don't know where this come from. But I still make that decision to say, hey, I still got to get up. I still got to get on the plane. I still got to make sure I go and I learn as much as I can. It's very easy for me to be very comfortable where I am right now.
Yeah.
My ancestors are looking down and say, man, this guy made it. Right. Yep. But for me, it's like, okay, how do I keep going? Because I don't want it to stop. And just like Daymond John says, I learned to fall in love with the maze rather than the cheese itself. And that's what really keep me going. I wake up every morning at 6 a.m. I take a cold shower, no matter how cold it is in New Jersey, just because it's one of those things that is just part of who I am now. And the one day that I don't do it, I'm like, man, I'm really giving into comfort. And I think so that's, in a long-winded way, it's like I just keep myself accountable to for the path I'm committing to do. And what I'm committing to do is to build something that is, so unique and how healthcare should be, right? So I just keep going back to my purpose, my vision, and just keep remembering why I'm doing it in the first place. And that just kept me going.
What about practically then? What about inside of your business? What's been some of the big decisions?
The big decision for me was to have a weekly meetings where I get to talk to my ops manager. I get to kind of lay out the plans of what's going on, and I get to have, scorecard meeting with leadership team, and then making sure they are doing scorecard meetings with people underneath them. And from there, we do have a good communication process of like, hey, what's going on? Who we need to look out for? Is so and so all right? Do we need help with anything else? That's probably the biggest thing that we did for the company. Was to keep accountability and to keep communication ongoing and have a standing time every 2 weeks to do those meetings.
Who runs that? Do you run that, or does somebody in your office?
So my ops run her scorecard on the front end team. My head of sales run the scorecard on the sales team, right? And then on the clinical side, my head PT would do that.
How have you got to the point of your team being comfortable enough to do that? What have you done? What's your involvement? I'm interested in that.
So in the beginning, we'll just do it together.
Yeah.
Right. And then from there, as I travel more, I say, hey, we did this X amount of time already. You go do it and you let me know how it is. Right. And then obviously they will come back, report. There's always some sort of communication issue. And then I would sit down and we'll have a breakdown of what happened during that scorecard meetings.
Yeah.
And I would ask them like, hey, what did you say? And I was like, okay, well, here's how I would say it.
Yeah.
And here's why I'd say it that way. And here's how I would see it.
Yeah.
So just kind of let them see like where my head was at.
What was the shift then that got you into the scorecards? Because there's people listening to this who'll be thinking, well, I've heard about these scorecards and I don't really know if it works. It's a bit like woo-woo, or it's a bit vision-y, or it's a bit, I just want my physios to treat patients. What was the thing that made you think, right, A, let's do this, and B, that it, how did you know that it started to work for you?
Well, I mean, it's very simple. If you have bad employees and are not being held accountable, if you have plenty of those, like that's why you start doing scorecard, right?
Yeah.
So you can weed them out immediately.
Yeah.
And, in 2021, it wasn't an easy year for me, where we had a couple people who were not willing to be held accountable. And, they would, if someone say like, by you sitting down, doing a scorecard meeting, so that way you can offer help, and they say that you're micromanaging, that's a red flag.
Yeah.
And, that's a person you shouldn't want to be on your team. And because of what I went through in 2021, I now hold scorecard meeting as something that's very dearly to me, because it's important. It gave me a sense of a pulse to see where people are and who's leaving, who's staying, who's the A player, who's a B player, and who else I got on the team.
How many of your staff after the scorecards are still with you?
Well, 2021 we kind of clean house. You knew this.
Yeah.
We pretty much, our original crew member left with one.
Yep.
And then we went from 4 people last year to now 12.
Yeah.
And as soon as we bring people on, scorecards was part of their journey the whole time.
Yeah, it's the change that people are resistant to, if you like, not the actual doing of the scorecard. And I think that's what I'm getting at for anybody listening to this. It's the ability to grow a company depends upon the staff that you've got, but equally the structure that they come into and the communication. And I remember that with Daymond John, I said, what's the most important thing as you grow multiple companies? And he said, structure and communication. If you keep the structure right, and I thought about it after, and I'm like, yeah, I see that. And it shifted my mindset even further towards the importance of where is everybody, who they're talking to, who's talking to them. And you look at the company and you think, actually, there isn't probably anything more important than that scorecard conversation, because that's aligning them to what their role is, what their job is, and who they report to. So there's your structure. They know what their day is. Logan, who's helped us with this today, stepped in for Macy. She's off today, and straight away the first day, here's your job. This is what we need from you. This is the big 3 things that you're responsible for. This is who you talk to. This is where we're taking your role. This is what success looks like. Here's your responsibilities. And then really what we need after that is every 2 weeks to someone say, okay, cool, how are we getting on? Are we aligned? Does your calendar reflect your priorities? A very simple trick for a new employee is just to sit down with them on the calendar and say, look, time block. If you've got 40 hours in a work week and you've got 3 big responsibilities, I should be able to see 3 different colors on your calendar, one pertaining to each responsibility in accordance with the time that you've allocated to that big responsibility. And if you haven't done that, I can tell you that you'll be inefficient and you won't be doing what we need. And that's not micromanaging. That's basically saying, hey, look, we're just wanting to make sure that we're trying to get you to do. If you just do these 3 things and you do them really, really well, because that's why we hired you, you've got a really good chance of being successful here. And I think there's nothing more important than that in a company. And anybody who goes, I don't like this, like it's just like saying, I want to be a top athlete, but I don't want the training. I don't want the structure. I don't want the coach to feedback. I want to go for a run, but I don't want anybody to have a stop clock so they can time me, right? It's kind of what we're saying. I don't want to plan for my run today. I just want to get out and go for a run. It's laughable. It's almost laughable that anybody will put up with that. But again, sadly, many businesses do. And that's why you do get employees who at first, I don't like this. But, once you explain it to them, it's like, actually, it's designed for you, not for me. If you like being successful, then you'll love this. Like, successful people have structure in their lives and in their days. So what else? Give us some more big decisions. I think we'll turn this into a big decision podcast. You just grew so fast, you've got a great story. You've got this kind of entrepreneurial startup business that you did really, really well. It hit a bit of a brick wall, as many did, through COVID and then people, but you kept going, you kept building, you've expanded your premises, and now you've come out the other side at what is now a genuine 7-figure company. What are the big decisions have we made these last 12 months?
I made the decision to again be more open with my thought process, and again, when I have scorecard meeting with my leadership team, is I let them ask me questions, right? Of like, hey, what I'm dealing with this, where's the company going, and use them as a sounding board and just kind of explain to them like, hey, here's the X, Y, and Z behind it, and this is something where I really had to overcome because growing up, like my family's always raised me like, hey, you don't tell everybody anything that you do. You got to keep everything to your vest and all of that, right? And the more things I have in my head, the harder it is for me to communicate. So what I realized is that if I just communicate bit by bit, I don't have to tell them the whole 5-year plan. I can say, hey, here's what's coming down the pipeline the next 3 months, and let them see the way I see it. Now they understand, because it's not something that, again, people don't like change, right? People also don't like to be left in the dark.
Yep.
And that's something I've been working on myself, is to get better communicating, because I'm really good at keeping things in my head and it makes sense in my head.
Yep.
But it doesn't make sense for other people, right?
Yep.
I mean, like, it's ludicrous that I'm in Florida eight times a year this year, right? And people, again, every time I leave, someone's texting my wife, is like, why is he always there, right? People just don't get it. But so now I have to, again, assume they don't get it, and I need to communicate of telling them the reason why and why we're doing certain things, so that way they understand the framework and the drive behind the decision and how it can impact them for the better.
I think you could do something better than that, Natty. I think I'm in the middle of writing a new book, and one of the chapters that I've been writing recently, I think it was under the banner of rule breaking, right? Chapter 3 is breaking rules and loving it, right? And I'm going off topic here, but we'll see where we go with it. It's called Breaking Rules and Loving It, and it talks about how the whole world basically is just all conforming to like nonsense, just utter trash that has been invented decades and decades and decades ago. And an example of one of the rules is HOAs, like the homeowners associations, right? So you're like, you always have to conform to what they want you to do, and if you want to paint your house, you have to ask for permission, all this shit, right? So in the book, I start to talk about scenarios where actually the point of rule breaking is just to enjoy life, right? It's just to laugh. It's just to get a giggle out of it for no other reason, right? To just do funny things, crazy things. And the hardest task that you're going to have is just to keep a straight face. And I think what would be really cool for you, if you went back to, everyone's asking, why do you keep coming to Florida, right? I think you should come up with something significantly better than the real answer, right? Now, it could be that you are Mickey Mouse for the weekend and you kind of dress up as Mickey and you go to Orlando for 8 times a year because you have a part-time role on the weekend in Orlando, dressed as Buzz Lightyear or Mickey Mouse, right? And the key is, and this is what I write in the book, the key is to do it with a straight face and to see if anybody takes you seriously, right? So instead of trying to, and I'm moving more and more towards this model of living, right? Where instead of, because I'm fed up with justifying why I do what, why am I going to Australia? Why am I going here? Why am I going there? Right? I'm going to Australia. Why? Or when I get asked, why are you going to Australia? I like cricket. I'm just going to go and watch your day's cricket. That's it. I'm going to go all the way to Australia, watch your day's cricket, then I'm going to come back. Like why else would I go to Australia? And I think you should start coming up with creative ways to invent creative ways to explain why you spend 8 times a year in Florida that are as far from the truth as is humanly possible. And I would love you to do it, right? And the day you start doing things like that, you've just moved into a completely different level of living. There you go.
And you just see their face going like those hot robots from Austin Power that just explode.
That's what they're going to do. So here's one. I know you love my little boy Tobias, right? And he'll be excited to know that you're in town. Today, for the first time ever, he's got a little bit of an issue at school, right? He's got a teacher that's a bit miserable, should we call it, right? And why she's a teacher, I do not know, but it's come to our attention. This teacher likes to shout, right? So we've done our homework. It's not at my boy. She just generally likes to shout at all of the kids. So I can't work out why this teacher, who's miserable as shit, is basically teaching 5 and 6-year-old kids and likes to shout at kids, right? Doesn't kind of, doesn't talk them down from being a little, they're 5 and 6, right? Doesn't talk them down from being a bit, come on lads, like, oh, come on guys, pay attention, stop being silly, whatever. Has to go out of her way to shout to the point that the kids are a little bit frightened now of her, right? And we've tracked all this back to a little bit of being sick and pretending not to want to go to school and all this stuff. And we found out anyway, it's this teacher. So this morning I said to him, are you looking forward to school today? He said, no. I said, why? He said, well, the teacher, she shouts. I said, okay, let's role play this. Let's role play a little bit of what we're going to do. If the teacher shouts, this is how you're going to react, right? And I taught him how to have a little giggle, put his hand over his face and laugh like a 5-year-old or 6-year-old would when somebody does something silly, right? So I said, when your teacher shouts at you, I want you to put your hand over your mouth and giggle hysterically. And when the teacher asks, why are you laughing at me? I want you to turn around and say, it's because my dad said, only silly people shout at 5-year-old kids. And this is funny. Like, this is not a problem anymore, Tobias. This is now funny. This is a serious, like, this lady is silly. You do not shout at 5 and 6-year-old kids. Like, that is silly. Like, only silly people do that. Right. So I'm absolutely adamant, like, that this is the way to live life, and not, again, the obvious is to kick and scream and to rant and rave and to kick off on this teacher this. Now there'll be a couple of conversations with the school, of course there will be, but ultimately I'm more interested in how I can help my son develop some kind of resilience and change his view of the world. Let's think about it. It is silly for anybody to be shouting at a 5 or 6-year-old kid repeatedly, right? It just isn't cool to do that. Like, you just don't do it to the point where they're frightened of going into school. So I'm kind of playing the same game with my kids, where I'm getting them to think completely different about how they're going to live, how they're going to interact, giving them permission to be themselves, but at the same time explaining that, like, if you've done something wrong, yeah, you'll be in trouble and we'll have to talk about it. But if this is somebody who's just losing the plot because they don't like kids and they don't want to be a teacher, that's not cool and that's not on you. Nor should you be carrying that monkey around your neck, Tobias. So from now on, we're going to role play, and I'm going to do it again tonight. A little snigger and a little grin on his face when he gets shouted at by the teacher, right? And he'll have to learn to be discerning between whether he's done something wrong and whether or not the teacher's just being a dick, for want of a better word. And the response will be taught. My dad said, people who are silly shout at kids. Like, that's why I'm laughing at you. I'd love to see the teacher's response to that when the line has probably been said at least twice today. But I'm not letting them play somebody else's game under any circumstances. Are my kids playing those shitty gas games with people who are just struggling with life under any circumstances. And that's, back to my point, that people who are questioning you, they're questioning your way of living, and yet they have a completely different thing that they want from their lives than you do. So they should never be questioning it, and you should never really ever even be forced to justify it or explain it. And that's kind of where I'm going. No explanations needed. From now on, just think of as many creative ways as you can to have some fun whenever you have to explain anything that anybody else might think is a little weird or a little little wacky. Your response is, I just love Splash Mountain. I love
I mean, I do love Splash
the
Mountain.
we all love Splash Mountain.
Yeah.
I don't love the queue, but
I think, I'm gonna tell people I'm starting a gator farming business.
Yeah,
in
there you
Florida.
go.
That's what
else could you do? You are auditioning for Tinkerbell to jump out of
there you go. That's a
the
good one.
castle. There's a good one.
Yeah.
You're
Helping out with the raid at Mar-a-Lago.
There you go. I've been involved in the raid. Just say I was at Trump's opening ceremony of his announcement last night.
Yeah.
Taking pictures. I was hoping to get a glimpse of the picture. Depending upon what state you're in, it probably wouldn't go down very well. But there you go. But anyway, the lesson is, don't justify to anybody. Live your life in your terms, and it is silly, right? This is, it's a serious conversation. It is silly for an adult, for a grown-ass 50 and 60-year-old to be shouting at 5-year-olds repeatedly. It is silly. I'm going to teach my kids the is world, not the other world, and very, very early on get them conditioned into somebody else wants to act that way. Great, you can go and fight with the teacher. I'm not fighting with the teacher. She's going to shout at kids for the rest of her life. But I can talk to my boys about how they can react to silly people who shout at kids, and that'll be significantly more progress there in their lives. And it's a great discussion when you start thinking like that. When people do ask, why are you doing things, you're probably onto something, and it should thrill you more than it should doubt you and make you question yourself. But sadly, I think the reverse happens for a lot of people, where their doubts kick in, and all of a sudden, how much am I spending on this? This is the typical response to somebody who is doing what you're doing. When they go home and somebody says, Thanksgiving's coming up, 8 times to Florida. Wow, that must be costing you a lot of money, Natty. And Natty's sitting there thinking, oh, is it? Well, actually, 8 times $500 plus hotel, plus spends, plus time away from the clinic. It is costing me a lot of money. Thanks for that. I better stop. So I'm not going to go on the journey that I was on in 2022, which got me to a 7-figure business, feeling amazing about myself, loving my life and traveling all over the world. I'll stop doing what I was doing because of somebody who plays at a level that I don't play at, pointing out what they couldn't do and they don't want to do. That's essentially what's going on. And that's where you need to be a guardian, a policeman, if you like, at the fortress of the way you think. Never more so than ever, by the way, in the coming 4 weeks when family are in town constantly.
Yeah. I mean, David John made a good point at PPM when he was like, someone gave me an advice and I looked at him and was like, oh, hey, aren't you a crackhead? And I thought that was the funniest thing because, people give you advice.
Yes, they do.
And I have a conversation with my wife all the time. It's like, I think people just give you advice to justify their own bad decisions. You follow their advice, that means they're doing something right because other people are following it, right? So it's just the blind leading the blind.
Yep.
And, people don't, again, older people, they mean well, but at the end of the day, there's really not much they can do now, right? Because majority of their lives already passed. So now they're looking at you like, oh, if they just follow my footsteps, that means what I did in my past is right. And I'm okay with that.
I love it. So what's next? Where are we headed?
Again, I mean, I like I said to you before, it's like I'm here all the time, right? The next thing is for us. It's like
I meant tonight, like the tavern.
Tonight. Oh yeah. Oh my God. I want to go to tavern. I want to go get some sushi. I'm starving. So it'll be nice to see you guys, Natalie and the boys. That'll be fun. But hopefully, next year I talked to my wife, right? Like we're gonna start looking at some places. We're here all the time. Might as well just get a place here. We come to Disney like twice a year, and now next year I'm aiming to come here 10 times. Well, like just up it a little bit.
I love it. I think that officially means we can change your name from Natty to Florida Man. Like
Yep.
I'm excited for you to be crowned the Florida man of the PG global community next year.
I wouldn't be the first one to move, right?
Well, we're doing our bit for bringing people into Florida when they get a smell of this sunshine and the cheap taxes and just the 300 days of blue sky. It's hard to leave, man. It's hard to leave. The more you come, it really is. It's a passionate place. People love it. They're fiercely loyal to it. It's a way of life that's different from anywhere else. It's a holiday. You live on holiday. It's there's work, from a guy that's been raised in northeast of England, which is pretty rough and ready and cold and dark and damp and all of the other things, some wonderful things. But Florida, man, I'm telling you, it's a way of life that if it grips you, it's hard to give it up, because you live your life on vacation. When you're not at work, you're on vacation.
Listen, I saw where you grew up. I mean, it's cold in the middle of
That was
the
summer.
I was like, oh my, this is freezing. I got one sweater. I was like, I can't live like this.
Yeah, it is. It's but again, what's really fun and where we keep it topical, relevant, the beauty of business and the success of if you pull off successful businesses, there's nothing like it on earth. Like the freedom it gives you, the opportunity that it gives you. And if anybody's listening to this who's a little lost, a little not quite sure, there's some shit going on in their business, or Medicare have just announced another cut, or some staff members give you some shit today, or whatever it will be, you can never lose sight of the opportunity that business presents itself. So if you respect it, if you commit to business and you do what it needs you to do, and you give it the love and the care it demands, the opportunity for business to lead a terrific life is like nothing else. I wouldn't swap my life for a movie star, a soccer player, an NFL player. I wouldn't, because of the restrictions it would put on my life. Like I could not give up. I could not go and be even if it was double my salary to be a movie star. I could not do it because I couldn't live the life. I couldn't do the things I want to do. I couldn't be a soccer player or an athlete. I'd have to give up too many things that I just wouldn't want to do. Like, and I'm not saying it's the commitment to it. It's the freedom that I've got in my life that it's unrivaled if you pull it off in business. And ultimately that's what we're all searching for, right down to I talk about this a lot, the freedom to live, laugh, play, tell the teacher to piss off. I'm not interested. We'll take her to another school. If she doesn't like it, she can go fuck herself. Like I'm not here to kiss anybody's ass. I don't want to be on the board. I don't want to get favors off anybody. I'm here to just get on with my life, live my life, and I'm not interested in what anybody else thinks or says. Now, that's a very, very difficult position for most people to get to, but business ownership allows you that freedom to live and play how you want and be where you want, with who you want, when you want. You don't have to play by anybody else's rules, and that's what ultimately business has done for me and kind of allowed me to do. And it seems like it's doing something very similar for you.
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. Like, the fact that I mean, for me, again, going back to making that decision, right? It's like this is the first time I feel like I'm actually owning a business, right? I remember beginning of this year, I was like, hey, before I was just a PT that happened to own a business, but I made the decision to be like, no, I'm actually a business owner who happened to be a PT.
Yeah.
And it put that ownership on me, right? Where, like, again, Daymond John say, like, success is many parents, but failure is an orphan, right? So, as a business owner, I love that extreme ownership that, hey, this is my responsibility. Like, I own it, just like every decision I made in my life, it's my decision to make. No one forced me on that. So at the end of the day, I can look at myself and be like, you know what? I got to make better decisions. And I enjoy that more now than ever because it gave me that freedom to be like, you know what? I get to decide like how I react to a certain thing and how I get to create my day or my path that I have. And another thing I'm looking forward to is like I've seen the evolution of my business as a vehicle to, again, the first part was a vehicle for me to escape a bad situation, right? I didn't want to work for a clinic. I didn't have the freedom to be there with my wife. The biggest thing for me was the biggest driving force for me to quit my job was they denied me going to an emergency mammogram for my wife, right? So I was like, I can't live my life like that. It all has to do with freedom.
Yeah.
And then the second part was like, all right, now I need to pay bills, right? So now it's become a vehicle for me to pay my bills.
Yep.
And now the next evolution is like, all right, now how do I keep this going and still, give back to other people and, upgrade the vehicle by itself to even give me more freedom in the future. So I can be here, half a year if I want to, right? Go to Disney whenever I want to, but still, build a team, build the people, give them opportunity to grow, to love the customer on my behalf.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So let's talk about the most important thing. Ronaldo, what's your thoughts?
I didn't get, like when I watch those kind of interview, I always my question is like, what's the point? What was the main reason of saying that? What he's trying to get to? Again, I think Piers Morgan also needed. He loves the headline. He's a big headline guy. He got Kanye on there, got Andrew Tate on there, and I figure if Ronaldo just go in and be world class like he usually is, and there's no headline, no one's gonna watch it.
Yeah. It was all set up. It was all staged. There was rumors in England that something was coming out weeks before. His sister kept coming out saying the truth will come out. He's going to tell his story. So kind of people were waiting. They just didn't know what, and nobody was really expecting that. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And it's quite sad, for those of listening who haven't kind of picked up on what we're talking about. Cristiano Ronaldo, his interview with a guy called Piers Morgan, where he basically chucked his soccer club Manchester United completely under the bus, and is blaming everybody for what he's going through right now. And the reality is he's just failing. He's failing. His body isn't as good as it was, and he's not as good as it was. And people have come along, and he doesn't fit most teams anymore. He can't fit in. But he's 10 years. His mind isn't catching up to that idea, and it's a toxic situation. But what was interesting, there was a video came out yesterday from his teammate in Portugal. Did you see this?
No, I didn't see that.
His teammate's fantastic. His teammate in the Portugal team, obviously they're all playing in the World Cup now. Bruno Fernandes, who plays at Manchester United, it's all over the internet. And he blanked him basically in the changing room. Ronaldo went to shake his hand, and Fernandes didn't even look at him and just kind of walked past him, looked back as if to say "fuck you," and walked off.
Mm-hmm.
And because he basically slagged the whole club off and his teammates and everybody, and all of a sudden Ronaldo now wants to be his friend when they're playing at Portugal. So I thought, good, fair play to you, good player. But it shows you, culture. The manager there has done a fantastic job. The lessons to be learned. He's managed his ego well. He's a player that doesn't fit the mold. He doesn't fit that culture, and you've got to get him out.
He's coming off the bench.
Yeah,
and you and I talk about this, right? I say the worst thing that happened to Man U was Ronaldo to come back.
Yep.
Because they were third place before he came back. Yep. He came back and everything just went to hell.
Well, the lessons for business ownership is there's no such thing as a one superstar that fixes the team. If anything, the superstar's the pain in the ass. And the most successful teams have just got some very, very good players organized around structure who can communicate with each other, who know how to do their jobs, who are wanting to do their jobs and can do their jobs. And you bring these superstars in, they're a pain in the ass, whether it's highly paid PTs or ops managers or whoever. The minute that their ego runs wild, they've got to leave that company as fast as possible. Ronaldo's obviously trying to engineer a sacking. He wants to be sacked so that he can get to a club in January. Now, why anybody would want to keep him? And, again, you read between the lines. In the summer, he wanted to leave. So everybody encouraged him to go. He started criticizing everybody who encouraged him to go. He said that the manager was disrespectful for dropping him, and even though he walked off the pitch twice. And then he said that the club want him out. And it's like, well, you do want to leave yourself. So all they're doing is actively encouraging you to do the thing that you've openly admitted that you want to do. How is everybody even bothered about this? But luckily, most people are not. You read the sort of commentary on it all, and people just think it's a disaster. I likened it to what Harry and Meghan did with Oprah, where it was just a disaster. It's like, what the hell have you done? How have you stooped that low to do that? And I think that with Ronaldo, I just think, how have you stooped that low to do something with Piers Morgan? I mean, come on. What really pisses everybody off in Manchester is that he's an Arsenal fan. So he's gone to an Arsenal fan. He's a huge Arsenal fan who are top of the league right now, to kind of basically criticize Manchester United. So it's all the money in the world, but their level of thinking is just, oh my goodness, really 700-800 million, and that's your level of thinking. You still think you have to rush to Piers Morgan? Does it get any worse? How degrading?
He will get more views just going on Instagram Live with his following. There's no need to go that.
How degrading. So sad.
He's on his way to the States. He's probably going to come to Florida.
Miami, he'll be another one.
Yeah.
He's coming to take advantage of the weather and the taxes. Yeah.
Yep.
And Beckham.
He's probably going to buy a team. Yeah. That's pretty much it. Get him part owner. Again, if I were Beckham, do I want that? Do I want that kind of headache?
Yeah, be interesting. I mean, he probably does from a commercial point of view, selling the shirts, but whoever the manager is, good luck trying to manage that one.
So real quick, with the World Cup, what's your prediction?
I mean, you always lean towards Brazil or Argentina, just for whatever reason. Messi, Argentina look to be pretty strong. Brazil never ever rule them out. Portugal have got a really good team, but Ronaldo could be the shadow in that team. They've got a very good young team.
France?
I don't know. France is still coming back. I think France is still rebounding. I think England will struggle to get to the quarters this year, but I say this every year. I don't see how England get past the quarters this year. It's always Argentina or Brazil for me. Brazil probably.
Really? No, I don't believe in neither team, right? So I'm gonna go France. I like France. I think they play well together. Messi just can't perform in a big stage, not in the World Cup stage. Sorry, that's. And Neymar, he's just.
Right. I'll go this one then. I'll keep it in Europe and I'll go Portugal. Okay. I'll go Portugal. But I cannot wait to start watching it. I've got a full week off next week, and I'm going to watch 4 games of soccer every day. Cannot wait.
Yep, 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., right?
Yep. I'll have the time of my life. Yep, got a TV outside in the garden. I'm going to have a great time. Yep. All right, Natty, you're a star. Thank you. Where can people find out more about you and your business and your profile?
Yeah, definitely follow me on Instagram, Dr. Spell it out, .natty, and then my clinic at Myokinetic, MYOKINETIX.
Yeah, so that's, let me just repeat that, at floridaman.com.
Yeah. Yeah. The Gator Tycoon. That's gonna be the next one.
I think you should, honestly. In fact, I'm gonna start encouraging more of my my audience to have a lot more fun. I think we should start like some kind of, each week we just agree to walk backwards across the road instead of forwards, or we kind of just do some.
Tom and I did that one time. We ate this huge steak. Yeah. And we're like, we just walk backward, man. I can't walk forward.
There you
the
go.
belly's too big.
There you go. No explanations either. So well done. You're doing amazing. Cannot wait to catch up with you tomorrow. Well done. We'll see you. We'll see you tomorrow. All right. Thanks, Natty. See you soon.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.